Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Town of Willington Inland Wetland and Watercourses Commission. Today is June 22nd, 2022. The time is now 7:30. Call to order. Is Evan online?
He is not.
Okay. We have Mr. Ralph Toulis, myself, Patrick Lord, and Mark Drobny. So we do have a quorum. There are no seating of alternates. There are no new applications to be received. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the May 18th, 2026 meeting. I had a chance to review those, had no comment. Ralph?
I did review them. I had a question about a question that I had asked about the truck wash. And that was, how do they manage the ever increasing concentration of soluble chemicals in that wash water if all they're doing is filtering out the solids? And I never did get a good answer on that. I don't know if that got captured in the recording of the meeting or not, but
I'm sure it was captured in the recording, maybe not in the written minutes, but
yeah, it's not in the written minutes.
They did state that it's all filtration. Yeah. I don't see.
No, I reviewed the minutes. There was nothing about that comment in the written minutes. So
I think that was more of like a P&Z issue rather than an inland wetlands issue, because it's all self-contained and
it may have been, yeah, it may have been passed over from that perspective, and I'm sure it'll come up at planning and zoning.
Because I believe they're all self-contained units that would not discharge to any wetland or water course.
No, I understand. I understand that. It's just the operation of truck wash. I mean, let's assume we're using common salt for road de-icing. And that gets dried onto these trucks, and they go through the truck wash. It gets washed off. It dissolves into wash water. All the sand and other solids and oil and grease and what have you gets filtered out. I get that. But anything that's in solution in that water is going to stay in the water. And Mike.
So, Ralph, your comments were captured in the recording. It's at 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 48 seconds, and it says and you talk about how do you get out the dissolved components, icing chemicals, and other stuff, other compounds that gradually build up. I'm trying to load the rest of it. So it is in the actual recording of the meeting. Trying to get to the rest of it, but I won't.
But the unknown is what happens to that. I understand the solids are filtered out, and there's going to be a sludge tank or whatever that's going to be disposed of elsewhere. I get that. But if we were just talking about salt, the salinity of that water is going to increase over time. How is that going to affect the actual washing mechanism? I mean, can you put detergents into salt water and have it be effective? But what happens to that water as that concentration increases over time? That's the question I don't have a good answer to. Yes, I understand they're going to recycle this water. Great. And they're going to filter out the solids. That's wonderful. But what happens to the chemical concentration buildup in the water that they're recycling? At what point do they refresh that? Where does that higher concentration water wind up being disposed?
Ralph, I understand your concern, your questions about the recycling system itself, but there's not a public hearing right now or a discussion about that system. So right now we're voting on the approval of minutes.
Understood.
So I would like to make a motion to approve the May 18th, 2026 meeting minutes. I'll second. We have a second. All in favor?
I'll say nay, just because.
It's all your comments and questions are within the recording, and that was a long discussion regarding that application, and I believe it might be very difficult for it to be transcribed into the specific narrative when most of the important things concerning the regulatory framework presented to us to approve the development within the realm of the inland wetlands regulations, I believe, was captured.
Okay.
There's no public hearing tonight. New business. We have timber harvest application 26-3, timber harvest at 180 and 196 Talon Turnpike, 0 Willington Hill Road, map block lot 235400, and Old South Willington Hill Road, map block lot 181900. All right. This was tabled from the May 18th meeting. I believe Mr. Rondo.
Good evening.
Was it Greg? Yes. Hi, Greg. How are you? You want to walk us through your timber harvest plan here for these locations?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, it's the quarry over at Becker's. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with that. The
Maybe we
pieces,
can pull up an online map for those to view.
yeah, is that something that you need me to pull up? Because I'm unable to do so. At the
Both
moment.
GIS or one of the maps that he submitted.
Maybe the one from the inland wetlands
The one that I did.
application, I think, because that shows, yeah.
I'm not seeing that. Let's see.
Yeah, just
It'll
give me
come
a
up,
second.
it'll come up in a second.
Oh, okay.
It's- So that would be IW 26.5. That's the one that just doesn't have the skid roads, it just has the parcels. That's okay?
I think so.
Well, why don't I just do,
Or we can piece everything that was submitted because it was kind of like piecemeal for each.
well, why don't I just do this, because then it shows all of it and I can do an aerial. That'd be,
Yeah, unfortunately, the way this lot is laid out, it's multiple parcels, so it was had to submit multiple maps.
Well, while that's getting ready, I was looking through your application and you didn't indicate there was any wetland or water courses, crossings or anything else like that. Would you like just to describe kind of the property and what your operations are going to be?
Yeah, so I know that there are wetlands on the property. Obviously, there's a few sections throughout this entire like 300-acre parcel. Most of it is obviously contained into the corners of, I think, let's see, that the piece to the south, the one that connects to Old Willington Road. There's a decent water course there, and there's various streams closer to the left-hand side of the quarry. What we're planning on doing is containing our actual landing to the quarry itself, because it's easy access in and out for the trucks. That way we don't have to disturb any other entrances or exits for like out on Route 74 or Old Willington Road or anything like that. Our idea is to try and contain all the skid trails to where the majority of the higher areas of ground are, away from the wetlands, and take all that wood back into the quarry area using our forwarders to minimize impact to any type of upland review area or wetlands soils. We didn't put any crossings in because there is no need for it. There's multiple areas where we can get that wood out without having to cross any, because we can enter from multiple sides of the quarry. It's pretty steep on the right-hand side. They've taken quite a bit of material out over there, but what we would do is we'd come down on the south side of the quarry and into the far top right-hand corner of the property there to access that stuff. We use Connecticut best management practices in all of our timber harvests. So if there was any areas of concern, like even though they're not wetland areas, if the soils ended up becoming eroded or any type of disturbance, we do have crane mats that are frequently used to minimize impact to any type of soils in existing like upland areas. But it's a selective timber harvest that we're cutting pretty hard. Unfortunately, this Becker's wants to cut all of their properties pretty hard. But all of it's going to be extracted through the quarry itself. Do you have any questions for me as far as any of that goes?
Do you have a timeline when you were gonna begin and propose end?
So the timeline is roughly about 8 months from start to finish. That's all things considered, you know, weather and everything permitted. Once the application is approved, we plan to commence within a month or two at the most. It's really dependent on approval, obviously, when we would schedule that in. But it is next on our agenda as long as everything goes well with the meeting.
Have the areas near like the property boundaries, the limits of work been marked at all?
Yes, 90% of them have. There are some corners that we had to speak with a few of the abutting landowners to try and figure out and determine where the pins might be located, because we couldn't find them when we site walked it. We didn't mark those definitively. Usually what happens when we can't find a pin and can't run the line is that we contact the abutting landowner that line is having some sort of a difference of opinion. Like if my GPS comes up and it's showing me a certain area, but I can't find a pin, I usually speak with them so that they can come out and walk it with me to make sure that we're all on the same page. And then we allow for like a 25-foot buffer from that area just to be safe. Usually the only lines that we do mark definitively are the ones that are set in stone. There's pin to pin. A lot of the lines on this property has been done, especially because of the quarry. So it was very easy to find most of the ones along 74 and down 320, like lot 196 there, and the one south of that. The only line that we did not definitively mark was the one. Let's see if you could scroll down just a little bit. I think it's right behind 54 is what I can see here. But yeah, like 14, the line down the left-hand side of that property was marked. But lot 10 there, that back line, there was no pin for us to locate. So that's one that we're working with the landowner currently to try and figure out where that piece is. But all the other ones are marked clearly and definitively.
There's no proposed cutting within a wetland or along a stream course?
No, sir.
I have no further questions of the applicant. I'll open up to the rest of the commissioners if they have any questions.
Are there currently skid trails?
Yeah, are the skid trails they pre-existing or are you gonna be cutting new ones?
Some of the ones that we're going to be using are pre-existing, but they're very old if they are there. So there is going to be cutting in order to maintain those skid trails for the type of equipment that we're using. But that's usually a good estimate on our maps is like where we're going to go. Sometimes they veer from, section to section depending on rocks, terrain, or any type of wetter soil than we had originally anticipated. But the trails themselves, they always have to be established. Even if there was existing skid trails there, there's going to be cutting involved in order to open those up for the equipment. So not it's not like we're going to run an airstrip down the center of it to get to the main skid trails. However, we do have to open them up.
I guess the concern would be, how would you navigate with the topographical challenges with some of that property?
So the skid trails that we mark on the maps, they're the main skid roads. That's where the most of the hauling is going to be done. But when the timber harvest is actually being conducted, our processing head forwarder, because it's a combination machine, usually runs like a straight line down those steeper contours and then works back up and piles the wood on the side for the forwarder to pick up. So the reason why there's not like a million lines on this, because it is such a big property and there are some topographical issues along this property, is that those aren't going to be necessarily run on multiple times. It's usually you go down into that area, you cut the trees that you need to cut for that selective harvest plan, and then you pull them out once and you're back on the main skid trail to get that to the landing. So that's usually how we would navigate that.
And I know this application was tabled last time to include some of the other parcels. Were all the abutter notifications for those parcels completed?
Yeah, they were completed. There was like 84 people that we had to send letters to, unfortunately, because of how many people, and some of them were even across 320 there. So we got confirmed. I think Evelyn and I discussed that through an email. She sent me a list of all the abutters that I had to send out, and I did send those all out.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Mr. Toulis, do you have any questions of the applicant or the operation?
No, I think the applicant should know that I prepared a composite skid trail map. And because of the varying scales, when you go from one plan to the next, that northeast corner is really kind of messed up as far as skid trails. They're really not connected to the larger parcels to the west and south. But I understand that when you're dealing with different scales, it's awfully hard to get them to coincide correctly. Hopefully, if up in the northeast corner, the abutters are happy, then I'm happy.
Yeah, that northeast corner is going to be a difficult one to extract. It's going to be a long run from that northeast corner all the way around the quarry and then back up into where our landing is proposed. But there is quite a bit of higher terrain above that wetland area on parcel 10, like above parcel 10, that we can run. There was an old road that ran through there at one time. And what we planned on doing was coming down through that area and hugging that quarry as tight as we could on the higher side of the elevation there and getting it around to where our main skid trail is going to come in. Unfortunately, that is going to be the one difficult task is going the far distance with all the wood.
Now, where is parcel 10, by the way? Because I'm not seeing it on any of the four maps that you submitted.
Parcel 10 is not part of the piece that we're cutting. That is one of the abutting landowners. So what I'm speaking of here is getting up into that far corner right behind the church and then coming in close to the quarry there on the higher side of the hill and working around the south side of the quarry into where our landing is going to be proposed.
Okay. No, I have no further comments.
Any further discussion? Make a motion to approve timber harvest application 26-3, timber harvest at 180 and 196 Tom Turnpike, 0 Willington Road, map block lot 235400, and Old South Willington Hill Road, map block lot 181900. No. No further discussion? Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Next new business is IW 26-5, request for jurisdictional ruling associated with the timber harvest application TH 26-3. That's for 180 and 196 Tom Turnpike, 0 Wellington Road, map lot 235400, and Old South Wellington Hill Road, map lot 181900. Make a motion to approve the request as a jurisdictional ruling. Do I have a second? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Rendo.
Thank you for your time, Commission.
Next, we have inland wetlands application IW 26-6, request to construct a 14-foot by 30-foot in-ground pool within the upland review area at 55 Tinkerville Road. Now we have a property owner here. Is your representative going to join us at all?
No, they said
He's just did the application.
he did the application.
Okay. So this one here. So open that here. So you're looking to put the pool kind of like in that.
Well, the deck is gonna be taken down and the pool is gonna go approximately at the end of the deck.
Is it gonna be, is it behind the house?
Yes, that's behind the house.
Okay, okay. So right off that corner where that kind of pin is there.
No, actually, it's gonna go right about where your thing is, right there.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, I looked at the map that they drew, it was kind of not right. The pin is. The fence probably might be where the pin is.
Oh, I
So
see.
according to the map, it's gonna be 30 feet off the back corner of the house, so it'll work.
Well, that's not correct. It's not gonna be right at the back corner of the house. It's gonna be more centered behind the house. 30 feet, but centered.
Oh, so a little bit more in the middle of the home.
Yes,
Like somewhere in there.
yes.
Okay.
And I could move it closer to the house if need be. That whole deck will come down
And
and,
then you're gonna build a new deck.
I just have patio
Oh, just a patio, okay.
and stairs coming down from the screened-in porch.
Well, it looks like, the installer is gonna put in some erosion and sediment control, some like silt fence.
Yes, he said silt fence, erosion control measures will remain in place until the grass is reestablished.
Mhm.
But also they can accommodate any specific requests that the commission wants for said school.
That's the only thing I was thinking of. So it's important to have that have the stabilization before you can pull that silt fence.
Right.
Because you don't want any of that sediment mobilizing and moving into either the pond or
Right.
the adjacent stream and well.
Um, And the grass area, actually, nothing will be affected off the grass area.
Yeah, it's all gonna be contained.
Yes.
Does the pool have a backwash system for its filter?
It's gonna be a saltwater filtered pool, I believe. I don't believe there's a backwash, no.
Okay, so there's no draining of any water out of that pool into the surrounding land.
Not unless there was an emergency and for some reason had to be drained. I don't anticipate that happening.
Okay, because
Yeah.
there is a health code requirement if the pool's equipped with a backwash.
No,
I'm sure your installer will provide you with the proper equipment.
yes.
I don't see any issue with this application. Is there any further discussion or questions of the applicant or the property owner?
I have nothing.
All right, make a motion to approve inland wetlands application IW 26-6, installation of a 40 by 30 in-ground pool, and the code compliant fencing for 55 Tinkerville Road.
A second.
All right, we got 2 seconds. Third. All right, we got a third.
Yay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Have a good evening.
Enjoy your pool.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Bye.
Alrighty. Next, there is no old business on the agenda. Was there any correspondence from staff?
Any correspondence from us or otherwise?
Okay, I know we last reported, this may come up in staff report discussion, but the activities associated with the solar installation and the
Unloading.
and the timber harvesting off of Kuchko.
For the Connecticut Siding Council project.
Yeah.
So I don't know how I left it last with you guys, but Deep did. So I called Nick, he went out and looked, and then actually sent someone or group or I don't know, team, I don't know what they are.
Right.
But did go out and count, and there was, I think, approximately 1,100 stumps that they counted. So certainly something that would exceed the criteria. There's a little bit of, I don't know what the right word is. So it's a little bit odd because the project received Connecticut Siding Council approval, and so, there's a little bit of overlap between 2 state agencies there. So I know that he was gonna recommend that the person, the forester responsible for managing the project be contacted in some form from Deep, because there's, no matter how hard you squint, there should have been something that should have come to the town. And the fact that it was an existing tree farm that, would not have anything to make it exempt. But ultimately, I think it's not up to him. So I haven't heard anything about that since. So, I think I mentioned it didn't necessarily seem fruitful to have them come in here because the property's been cut, and if Deep is taking enforcement, that's really where that should lie anyways.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't had anything else since then. I don't think there's been any activity there since that point, because we haven't had to go out, at least that I'm aware, and sweep the road, which is what originally brought it to us.
Right.
Public Works was getting complaints about tracking and had to go out and sweep her. And so I haven't had anything on that since then.
I wonder if it was taken as like land prep.
It was, in my opinion, a very, very eyes wide open decision, because when we reached out to the developers of the solar project, I asked, they said, it's got nothing to do with us. But here's the name, phone number, and email address of the forester who's managing the project. So, that's like, you're buying a house and the sellers have a generator put in before they sell it, and I reach out to you and say, well, it's got nothing to do with us, but here's the contractor the sellers are using to put it in, like,
Yeah.
you don't just, it was not a public, it was a Gmail address, like in a cell phone number, you don't just have that online.
Yeah.
So I think that it was because with the state, the seller developers do not have authorization to begin the project. There's a lot of things they have to do, so it can't be from them. But if the people that they're buying a property from happen to authorize activities that dovetail perfectly with the activities that they need to have done. So very clearly there's a gap in the siting council process because, other places have had issues with other things not related to timber harvest, but, yeah. So that's a separate issue that we need to deal with, but.
Okay. Well, the deep is on it.
Hopefully.
Then we trust. Is that it then?
That is all I have, actually, which just reminded me, I need to check to make sure we're required to do our reporting.
Oh, to the state?
So July 1, we'll be doing our timber harvest reporting to Nick directly.
Okay.
That's on my calendar.
And then,
Training.
oh, the water courses training? Did
Yeah.
it go online?
So I have been hearing that some places have been told that they're on a waiting list, but basically everybody needs to take it in 2026.
Okay.
Let me follow up on that.
Yeah, you could send out like a link or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if there was like a pass, because I remember in the past there was like a special passcode we needed.
But they don't have any more, but then I just had heard that some people have been told that they were on the list. I don't know.
Okay.
I will look at that and try to get that to you.
Okay.
And as of this morning, we don't have anything that's pending that is active, so if we have a July meeting, it would just be for receipt.
Now, when's the July meeting?
The regularly scheduled meeting would be for the 27th.
I will not be here.
Well, like I said, as of right now, we don't have any items. And I leave the next day for vacation, so if we had nothing and we didn't meet, I wouldn't have any
Hard feelings.
hard feelings or trouble sleeping.
Not be here. Nor the week after.
Well, if something comes up, I'll let you know, but as of right now,
Maybe we can push it the week ahead.
it would just be for receipts. So.
Just for that Monday.
Okay. That is it.
All right, the floor is open for any public comment or discussion. I see we have Mr. Miller, Michael Miller, and Kathy Demers. Hi, Kathy, you're recognized.
Hey, I just wanted to, just a general suggestion. When folks come in for timber harvest applications, I'd like to suggest that somebody ask a more specific question about, are there vernal pools on the property? I know they're a wetland and we're asking, are there any wetlands that you'd be crossing and so on? But I think it's always important to kind of raise that issue since we don't map vernal pools. And, they really deserve some protection, especially, we don't want them crossing over them during a timber harvest. So just asking that question would be helpful in the future. Thanks.
I believe under the Connecticut Inland Wetland Watercourses regulations, vernal pools are considered a wetland and not specifically called out as a specific regulated area. Am I correct in saying that?
I don't know.
Because they all are afforded the same upland review area.
I am just.
As far as like timber harvest, I mean, I think we have provisions within our regulations that give specific buffers, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we asked Nick Zito here before, or a forester previously, about, because it isn't as of right, they can harvest within a wetland area.
Our regulation has the standards which talk about density is not the right word. We limit how much you can cut within that certain distance
Right.
around that. So I think if somebody came to an inland wetlands commission that wasn't here and said, we're gonna drive through a vernal pool to harvest trees, I think that a traditional review the commission wouldn't have any real oversight over that. However, we have standards pertaining to them in our forest practices regulations, which gives us a little bit more ability to guide that. And I think you could say, hey, you really need to drive through? You can't just like drive around?
Right.
But I will add a question to the form that just asks if there are any on the property. Yeah, yes, no.
Yeah, because they're not specifically mapped. Vernal pools aren't specifically mapped in Connecticut, like by the NDDB or anything else. It's considered an inland wetland. So I believe it'd be considered inland wetland resource. Because if you look at the regulations, it says vernal pools, isolated wetlands, blah, 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 are wetlands.
Over the forester hours.
Well, the forester, I mean, if they're seeing a wet area, I mean, the most important time for the vernal pools in the spring, right? So supposedly they dry up, right? After
Yeah, you wouldn't want that damaging
the substrate. Well, how are they gonna know if it's
dry if it's dry.
And even so, the critters that are using that only use it for the water, so. Can you ask Nick about that, please? We can get clarification from the DEP, forestry unit.
I appreciate it. Again, there are timber harvests that they say they're going to be harvesting just in the winter or when it's not wet, but as we've seen in town, they're doing it year round. So especially on these large properties, and leaving some habitat because the amphibians that use the vernal pools, there's, again, it's hard to regulate these, but sometimes you can bring this up with the person that's doing the harvesting and just suggest that they might want to maintain some kind of a 25-foot buffer, just giving, some cover over the edges of those pools. Like I said, we can't force them, but we can talk about it sometimes and get their attention. Just something to bring up if you can. Thanks.
I added that to the application asking that they answer yes or no. I put our vernal pools mapped or otherwise present on the property. Our regulations in section 300-3B under buffers, 1A says that a minimum buffer of 50 feet in width surrounding a vernal pool. So we do have that in there as a requirement for a commercial forest practice. So even if they're in and around those areas, they should be maintaining a 50-foot wide buffer.
All right, so maybe the next time one comes up, we can bring that up and make sure they're aware. Because a lot of times they say they're going to do it in accordance with our regulations, so we have to take them for that.
Yeah, I mean, really, what we could do is a little bit. I mean, it would be tricky, but I guess we could. We could try to do if there's a characteristic of a property that has a timber harvest that is really unique or really important from a ecological standpoint, we could try to follow up. I mean, certainly could go out onto the property, but afterwards, if we do an inspection and they've whacked all the trees within 50 feet of the vernal pool, then what we need to do is we need to be reporting that to DEP. Because
They're not.
if they're saying, yeah, we're gonna do it based on your regs and based on BMPs, and then they just roll through, like these, when you're talking like this one has an operating 396 acres, 170, like there's no way that we can,
Right.
but none of it's visible. But if we have specific concerns about an operator or a site, we can make plans to go out and commission do a site walk. I can go out, or afterwards we can do a sort of a post-activity inspection just to see if they've maintained it. And if they haven't, then we can, be reporting that. And certainly when we it's not like there's hundreds of operators in the state. We tend to see the same.
Yes, we do.
So, you know, if you see something that's of a concern, then we can certainly include a condition that, you know, that they coordinate with staff to do an inspection when they're harvesting in that area. We can do a post activity, like whatever. Those things are all on the table. You're not
Okay.
prevented from doing that because on the wetland side, it's as of right. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And we can go out and happy to take a look.
For the future.
Yeah. But it is on the application, so going forward, all the new applications, they'll be required to say yes or no.
Thank you. Sorry, further discussion or comment from the public out there? Make a motion to adjourn the Town of Willington Inland Wetland and Water Courses Commission meeting today, June 22nd, 2026. Time is now 8:22. 8:11. 8:11. Record time.
I'll second.
We got a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everyone.